Hey there everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm that Scottish nerd, and if you enjoy Pokemon trading card game content, gaming videos, or the occasional movie review, then be sure to subscribe down below to my channel as I upload multiple times a week and you don't want to miss a video. In this week's episode of Theme Deck Tuesday, we're having a look at the Blazing Volcano from Lost Thunder. The theme deck includes Entei as its main attacking and powerhouse Pokemon. Its eruption attack does 80 damage for 3 energy, but we also discard the top card of both players' decks, and for each energy that's discarded in this way we do an additional 60 damage. But with the combination of Macargo here, we can actually use its smooth over ability to control our top deck, meaning that we can put an energy card on the top of our deck, and that's going to allow us to do 140 damage consistently every single turn. But of course, since a third of theme decks, that's 20 cards in a theme deck, are going to be energy cards, it's quite likely that we also hit an energy on our opponent's side, and doing 200 damage is going to knock out every single Pokemon in theme deck format. To complement this, we also have this Blaziken, which has an ability allowing us to recover and accelerate some energy from our discard pile onto our revenge Pokemon. This means that you can set up your Entei quicker, as well as using Blaziken itself to attack, as it does 90 and 20 to all of your opponent's benched Pokemon. This can be good for setting up attacks later on, or finishing up a Pokemon if your opponent chooses to switch out or retreat. Supplementing this, we also have a couple of copies of Houndour. This allows us to draw for each of our Houndour, and going into Houndoom, which has Nasty Plot to search out cards from our deck, giving us a little bit of nice consistency, as well as this Heracross can be a good attacker for only 2 energy once you have your Blaziken set up. Then Powerful Friends is doing 120 damage, which is very respectable for a basic Pokemon in theme deck format. And this little Pokemon here, Shuckle, is great for its ability, allowing us to thin out our deck and discard some energy cards so that we can get some better draws, as well as Energy Drink, which accelerates energy from the discard pile onto our Pokemon. This can be useful early on to get extra energy into play, as well as get our better consistency through the deck. We do also have this Smeargle, which I've never personally used, but you might find a use for it. Particularly its Stunning Likeness attack makes it so that your opponent reveals their hand, and then you can use the effect of a supporter card that is in their hand. This is not very reliable because they might not have a supporter card, as well as its other attack which does damage. You have to flip a coin and you might not do any damage, so I would stay away from using Smeargle, where you can use any of your other Pokemon that draws cards or damages, that kind of thing. And another reason that I really love this deck is that it has a great host of trainer cards, and I really love the trainer cards that are included in this theme deck because the inclusion of things like Ultra Ball, Timer Ball and Nest Ball to search out our Pokemon as items, as well as the couple of copies of Rescue Stretcher so we can recover our Blazikens, or even if our Entei gets knocked out we can put it straight back into our hand. As well as a great selection of trainer cards and supporter cards, because we have things like Lily and Professor Kukui allowing us to do more damage, and Pokemon Fan Club so we can search out our basic Pokemon, as well as one copy of Guzma, so if there's a big threat that our opponent has building up on their bench, we can try and target that down and knock it out before it's able to do any damage. And rounding off, we do have a split of a couple of grass energy to use our grass attackers, but primarily we have our fire energy here so that we can use our attackers. Hopefully you enjoy this video, and if you do, be sure to give it a like at any point if you do enjoy it. We've happened across the other deck from Lost Thunder, which includes Raikou as well as Ampharos, as well as I think it has the Zeb Striker with Sprint, which allows my opponent to draw. We don't have the best of hands here, but we do have the Shuckle that we can go ahead and use in order to discard a couple of energy from our deck, and hopefully we can draw into a couple of better cards here in the future turns, like going and attaching an energy to the active and trying to get some damage in the following turn, since we do have a 2 energy attack cost, as well as this Kukui we can use in combination with our Macargo, since we have a very Macargo heavy hand starting off here. Putting that Macargo into play is going to give us the exact card that we want, although I'm not quite sure what card that will be at the moment, as we do have a lot of choices, and I think getting set up with a couple of Torchic would be nice. We weren't able to play any other cards on our previous turn apart from this Shuckle, and it looks like my opponent's just going to hit us with the Blitzel. We also get the Sights here, which we could use to draw cards. I think that's going to be better for drawing more cards overall, and of course we can use Kukui in the future turns if we need to. So let's use Macargo here. I think we're just going to grab the Torchic so we can immediately get that. And we'll put that onto the top of the deck and use Sights here. We can discard cards, and we'll discard this Fire, and we'll get to draw until we have 5, so we get that Torchic guaranteed. We also get into the Combustion, which is nice for the following turn, as well as the Entei. And we shall just hit for our 20 damage in return. My opponent's probably going to be hitting us again for their 20 damage, not unless they evolve into the Zebstrika. But this hand isn't looking too terrible since we got that Macargo set up nice and early. It's going to be making our turns nice and consistent, allowing us to get any card that we want onto the top of our deck and subsequently into our hand if we have a draw supporter, or we just wait for it on the following turn. So having a look at my opponent, they got the Naganadel into play. That's going to be good for them, doing a nice consistent amount of damage and setting itself up if there's energy in the discard pile. And they also used a Lady, which allows them to search out for energy cards. But having a look here, we are going to use Macargo, try and search out something. We could get the Blaziken, but we could just wait for that next turn as well. Going for something to combo with this Kukui. Probably an energy card would be our best bet here, as we don't have a lot of energy going on. So we shall grab that to the top of the deck and Profess Kukui in order to draw it. Getting Rescue Stretcher is not hugely useful, but I shall put this energy onto Entei and start setting that up. And just hit for another amount of damage. For this time it's 40, since we got the increase from Professor Kukui. So we'll be looking to knock out our opposing Pokemon before my opponent does, as we've caught up in damage, and we'll be able to overtake them since they're only doing 20, and we got that little bit of extra boost from the Professor Kukui, so we can go ahead in the damage there. My opponent is just evolving up their Pokemon, looking to get their board set up. They have a Tate and Lisa, so they can shuffle in and draw a fresh set of cards to try and improve their hand a little bit. Getting some more evolution Pokemon onto their field, working towards those Ampharos, which is very good for them. Ampharos can put out some good damage, doing 50 to 2 Pokemon, and its ability paralyzes. But they're just going for the attack. They've not been able to get the Zebstrika, not unless they just don't want to play it down, they just like attacking. We draw into another Torchic, so I'll put that down, and we shall go for the Blaziken onto the top of our deck. That's going to allow us to evolve into it once we draw it on this following turn, and we'll just attack for the knockout. I didn't want to get the Blaziken with our Ultra Ball, as that would force us to discard the Rescue Stretcher, and managing your resources in Theme Deck is very crucial when you only have 1 or 2 copies of a card. Especially with this deck, Rescue Stretcher is one of those cards that's very important and you don't want to be discarding, especially when you don't have to. You want to be making use of it as much as possible. My opponent has a Professor Kukui. They're going to be able to do additional damage this turn as well. And they get that energy attachment, so they're going to be able to do their 50 damage to 2 Pokemon. If they do it to the active, they're going to be able to take a knockout. And they also do the 50 to our Entei, setting that up for a knockout pretty soon. going to put up the Shuckle in the hopes that we get a Grass Energy, or at the very least it's going to be able to survive a hit since it has 60 hit points. Using this Ultra Ball as well is going to allow us to start setting up a second Blaziken, at least searching out a combustion here so that we can have off Blaziken soon enough. And we can use the one that we have set up already to get some energy onto our Entei. I'm also going to make use of my cargo to put a supporter card to the top of our deck so that we can get a good draw going. My opponent only has 3 cards, so Copycat's going to be pretty useless here. Lily is probably our best bet from the looks of things. That will allow us to draw the most amount of cards, and we can always use Rescue Stretcher as well if we want to draw the maximum amount of cards. My opponent's going to be working to get more energy in play with their Naganadel. They use a How to draw 3 cards, and since they have their board set up, they really don't need a whole lot at this point. We don't have any strong attackers other than our Entei, so if my opponent is leaving the Shuckle in the active, which they are since they aren't able to knock it out anyway, they're going to continue to snipe our bench. Now, I could Rescue Stretcher here, but as I mentioned, we don't want to be wasting it unnecessarily, and also making use of my cargo here to get an energy to the top, although I would like to save that for keeping it onto the Entei. Well, we do have our Blaziken, so we can accelerate an energy onto Entei this way and then attach to the Shuckle to retreat it. That's exactly what we got here. So we're going to attach this energy to Shuckle, retreat, and use my cargo to bring energy to the top of our deck. This is going to allow us to use Eruption for at least 140 damage, and hopefully my opponent has an energy, which they do, so we do the maximum 200 damage for the knockout. That's exactly what you want to see when you're using Eruption, and we've kept the Rescue Stretcher in our hand so we can recover this Entei should it be knocked out, which it is going to be knocked out because my opponent has Naganadel set up. So getting this Blaziken down early along with the Macargo, you can see it's really useful for keeping your board consistent and getting extra energy attachments into play even if you don't have energy in your hand, and the combination of Blaziken and Shuckle is going to allow you to get the energy onto your board just as easily if you're not drawing any particularly. So here we can go back in with Shuckle and use its attack energy drink, and that's going to allow us to attach a bunch of energy to our field. That's going to be our best bet here, although we are on a bit of a back foot. We will get the Heracross out so we can use that Powerful Friends attack, as well as this Rescue Stretcher to get our Entei back into play. We can also use Blaziken and a supporter card. Put the energy onto our Entei since it has the highest attack cost, and my opponent has quite a large hand, so we'll probably use Copycat here. It's going to shuffle our hand into our deck and draw the same amount of cards as our opponent. So we can choose to put any card onto the top of our deck, just trying to consider what card exactly we want on the top of our deck. Most likely a Blaziken, as then we'll have 2 set up. We don't really need a supporter as we have a couple in our hand already, so getting this Blaziken to the top seems pretty good to me. We'll just settle with using Energy Drink, and we'll put an energy onto Heracross as well as Entei here. That's going to mean that they're both set up and ready to attack on this coming turn, and unless my opponent also has a Guzma in their deck, which I'm not sure that they do, but assuming that they don't have it in their hand at least, they're going to be forced to knock out our Shuckle, and we can go in with our Entei and get the knockout. So we're really putting the pressure back on my opponent, forcing them to get set up and have energy attachments to attack with their own Pokemon. We see an Ultra Ball from them trying to search out a Pokemon. But interesting to see what exactly they grab at this stage, considering they have both of their Raikou in play as well as their second Ampharos here. It does require 2 energy attack, and they don't have any on it at the moment, although they're attached to the Raikou, so they're probably going to be looking to use the Ampharos' ability to put 2 energy in the Lost Zone and proceed to attack with the Raikou. Taking a while to Ultra Ball, but they finally decide to settle on a Zebstrika. Although no Blitzel in play, they're not going to be able to evolve into that Zebstrika and make use of its sprint ability. Also see another Kahili, but we get a Tails on that, so my opponent doesn't return it to their hand. Of course, drawing 2 cards is always going to be good, and if you can get ahead on that Kahili, drawing 2 cards again the next turn can be useful. As mentioned, my opponent has the attack for 80 damage, knocking us out, so we shall go in with our Entei. We'll be able to attach an energy to the active and evolve into our Blaziken, so we can start attaching extra energy onto our bench Pokemon. We also have the Entei, so we can even attach to there if we so desire. And I think that's exactly where we're going to go with it, since it is a basic Pokemon and we want to be streaming Entei as much as possible, using Blaziken as a kind of last resort attack. We also have a Kahili here of our own, so if we go ahead and look at our deck with Magcargo, we can see if there's anything useful that we can make use of here. Maybe a Rescue Stretcher or a Guzma could be useful. Since the Ampharos does paralyze us with the ability it has, Guzma could be good to switch out. And we don't have any switch, although Big Malasada also heals a special condition, and Lisa also does a switch out effect. So let's go with a Guzma here, just to have it in the hand at our disposal. I feel it's going to be very, very valuable. So we Kahili, we get Tails on the Kahili unfortunately, but we can use Eruption and we both have energy once again. Of course I could have used Magcargo to get an energy to the top of my deck, but I really wanted that Guzma, and with the amount of energy that we both have in the deck, it's very likely that we're going to be hitting energy for the 140 that we required for the knockout there, so the odds were in our favour for sure. You just have to take risks like that sometimes in theme deck format, and most of the time they do pay off. My opponent does get the second Naganadel into play, as well as that Blitzel. Promoting the Raikou here suggests that they're going to be able to Lost Zone 2 energy with their Ampharos. They do only need 1, I believe, in the Lost Zone. It could be 2, but they get the 2 energy from the ability, which is going to paralyze us, and then Raikou is able to attack 30 plus 90 damage if there's any lightning energy in the Lost Zone, so they're doing 120 damage, which isn't actually enough to get the knockout on us, hence why we take Guzma, so that we can switch out our Pokemon as well as bring up one of their Pokemon. So the case is just deciding what it is that we actually want to bring up to attack. If we have this have a look at this Ampharos, it has 150, so we would have to hit 2 energy with an energy on their side. So I think going with the Guzma on Naganadel could be good, or just using our Big Malasada that we drew into to get the knockout on the active. That's actually the play that I'm going to go with here, since my opponent doesn't really have an attacker other than the Naganadel. So we can continue to attach energy and set up our board more effectively to prepare for that Naganadel or any other attacker that they choose to set up. Using our Blaziken here, we have our Entei and Heracross set up, so we can start attaching energy to Blaziken and other things, as well as using our Magcargo to to get that guaranteed energy to the top of the deck. Don't need to play a supporter here because that's going to mess with our top deck. So we just Eruption, discard those cards, and boom, we hit for the 140. We also discarded How on their side of the deck, so that's going to limit the draw potential that they have. And we're looking in a very good spot here. We did have a bit of a slow start with our opponent getting some damage in with their Ampharos, but we've been able to tie it up and now go ahead in prizes. So if they do have the energy here, they're going to be able to hit for knockout. That's perfectly fine, as we do have a response knockout with our own Entei set up in the bench, as well as any other attackers that we choose to go with. Since our hand is quite big, we can actually set up the Houndoom if we get a Houndour, or just continue to attach to our Blazikins as well. So if this continues, then we're going to be able to win this match very comfortably. We do draw into the Houndour, so I'll put that down just in case we want to use it as an attacker, and also start attaching some of this extra energy. Get 2 energy onto the Houndour and use this second Blaziken to put an energy onto itself. We can also use Kui here. Might as well just to draw the extra cards. We're not going to need the damage at this stage in the game, as we can use Macargo and Eruption to get the knockout. That is unfortunately our last fire energy, but our opponent concedes the game. They know that we're going to be getting the knockout, and we're going to be able to win that match very easily since we got that nice comeback. That was an awesome showcase of the deck, and it definitely shows off its strengths. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments section, as that wraps it up for this week's Theme Deck Tuesday, and I'll see you guys in the next video.